Young British woman marries American playboy. They seem to be a charming couple. But a dark mystery keeps their regular lives a secret. The man subjects his wife to countless horrible acts. The husband is found guilty and handed the death punishment for a heinous act as a result of their bitter divorce. As a result, in order to understand his actions, we must go back to November 9th, 1994.
Allen County, what is your emergency?
Yes, I just saw a shooting, please.
Okay, do you know if anybody's been shot?
Yes, I see the lady. I see her in her garage right now.
Is somebody shot?
Yes.
Stay on the line. Let me connect you with the ambulance service. Hold on. Allen County, go
Yes,
ahead.
I just saw a shooting.
You just saw a shooting?
Yes.
And what is your location?
I'm at Timbers Trail in Atascocita.
Timbers Trail?
Yes. In Atascocita. You need to send an ambulance. She's down.
All right, I just need to find out where we're going now.
There's a black man. Is he black? I don't want to say he's black.
Sir, have you done
He's
the call?
dressed in black. There's a man at her house still, and my lights are on, and I know.
Okay, have you called the sheriff's department yet?
No, I just saw
Sure. This is 911. I'm waiting to transfer. Have you done with her? Because we need to get out there. Very good, then. I'll have them out there. Dispatch out.
Okay, there's someone still over there.
Laura, stay on the line. Let me connect
I'm
to the
still
sheriff's
here. I'm
department.
still
Hold
here.
on.
Harris County Sheriff's
Allen
Department.
County have a shooting. Tascocita, I'm in route. Go ahead, ma'am. Suspect still there.
Oh, yes, so there's still a person out there. There's a black gentleman. He's got a black shirt and a black pants. The lady is down in her garage. She's been shot 2 times or 2 shots.
Oh, dear. Okay. All right. And what EMS was en route to Tascocita?
Yes. Oh, my God.
Okay. And the suspect is still there. Where's the guy?
She is in her garage.
The suspect?
No, the suspect is, there's a car that just pulled up. The suspect is behind a tree, and he can't see me. I have my lights up, but there's a car that just pulled up, and I can't tell what color.
Okay, ma'am.
Oh, God, my husband's not like get in here. I think Darren went to see the license plate, but he can't get the license plates of the car.
Okay. So if you can, will you call us back, okay?
Okay.
If the guy gets in the car with
license plate, babe? Jay, get back in the house. Shut the door, please. Did the man get in the car?
Ma'am,
The black man.
the house, right?
Yes, a black man just got in the car there, but it was a silver car, I believe.
Uh-huh.
Darren, do you know what kind of car it is?
Ma'am, did you say this is Timber Trail Drive?
Timbers Trail Drive, yes.
It has an S on it?
Let me tell you something about the car real quick. It was a silver car with one burnt-out headlight.
Okay.
Hatchback. Real small Toyota.
About 6 years old.
About 6 years old.
It could be a Honda.
It could be a Honda. The lady is still in her garage. And they turned the lights out in the garage.
Does the car look like it's waiting for suspect?
Yes, and it already drove off.
With them in there?
Yes, the suspect just took off.
Did you get the? Okay.
No, my husband went out to look, but then I just gave you the description of the
Okay, well, does Timbers have an S on it?
Timbers, yes, it does.
Okay, that's why it's not coming up in the computer. Okay, let me try this.
I'm just very scared because I know these people just run lights around. Do you think they saw my house?
Okay. Hold on just a moment.
Oh, God. Should we go over there and see her? Darren, please don't go over there. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes?
I'm going to transfer you to Constable Precinct 4 so they can talk to you, okay?
Okay.
Since this is an in progress, you might have some information that they need.
You think you don't go over there, sweetie.
Hold on, ma'am.
Okay. God. Darren, my roommates are going to go over there to see her.
Ma'am, I have Precinct 4 on the line. Constable Precinct 4. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Can you tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I just saw a shooting. I was in my living room nursing my baby, and I looked out my window, and our neighbor was outside her garage, and she was shot 2 times.
By a passing motorist?
No, the guy. It looked like he was either in her garage waiting for her, or I just saw his pants, and then I saw a black man, and he was dressed in black, and he was waiting, and he jumped into a car.
What kind of a car?
It was a silver car. My husband gave the 911 description, but my husband just pulled up into her driveway. He can see her, and she's down, and my husband's going right down to see if he can help her.
Okay, your husband is not armed or anything?
No. The only thing he has is mace.
Okay, did y'all see who did it?
No, all I saw was the pants, and then I saw the gentleman, but I can't give a description of the guy.
Okay, but he was in a silver Toyota?
Yes, and a hatchback there, and so it had one headlight out, or one something out. My husband knows. He's over there with her right now.
Okay, and he shot her twice?
Yes, I heard 2 shots, and I heard her scream, and I looked out my window, and my lights were all on. I know these people saw inside my house.
Okay,
my
you
husband's
live
running.
in Campbell, right?
She shot in the head, my husband said. She shot in her head.
Yeah, that woman has been shot in the head and she's still alive.
And she does have 3 children. I do not know if the children are home.
Huh?
Okay, there's a police officer coming. I see someone coming.
Yeah.
Oh, dear Jesus, help this woman.
Okay, we got a unit over there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and you need to advise them what y'all did see, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We would first want to send our sincere sympathies to the family of Farah Frada, who was a victim of the horrible atrocities described in this case, before we move on. It was a quiet Wednesday evening in Humboldt, Texas suburb on November 9, 1994. The 33-year-old Farah Frada's 3 children were spending a regular Wednesday night with their father, Robert Frauda. When she returned home after running errands to the barber and the grocery store, Farah opened the garage door and was shocked when a man smashed through it and shot her in the head. When she fell and hit the concrete floor, she shouted. The invader shot her in the head once more before he waved for his passenger, who came less than a minute later, behind a tree in the yard. Darren Holscher, who lived across the street, observed the entire episode and called 911. They were not aware that the thief had been seen. By the time police and paramedics arrived, Farah had already lost a significant amount of blood. The Holschers provided the police with a description of the gunman and the getaway car when they got in touch with them. Shortly after the police and EMS, Robert and the children drove up to the scene. Robert gave his permission when officers at the scene asked him to make a statement at the police station. Robert was questioned by police later that day. While the police investigated the event and questioned the witnesses, paramedics focused on getting Farah into a helicopter to take her to the hospital as quickly as possible, but it was already too late. She passed away even before she arrived at the hospital. Farah had been living alone with her 3 children since she filed for divorce from Robert in March 1992, which Robert did not like. The divorce swiftly turned acrimonious because Farah made Robert's sexual obsessions public and fought for custody of their kids. Robert was in a custody dispute as well. Farah was killed 3 weeks before the divorce trial. Detective Larry Davis questioned Robert at the police station. After Farah was killed, where was Robert? Rob was questioned by Davis. Robert asserted that he had driven the kids to church that evening. The police reported that Frada didn't appear surprised. He behaved in a manner that was not typical of the deceased's husband, despite the fact that their divorce was quite difficult. According to Davis, Robert came across as haughty and dishonest during the entire interrogation. He didn't act in a way that allowed him to be entirely open and honest during the conversation. Robert never exhibited sorrow at the tragic passing of his wife. He didn't express any remorse. Instead, he just showed how confident and cocky he was that he could win this. That is how Bob Frada appeared to you on that particular day. Bob Frada beaming at the camera was the last thing the jury saw of the prosecutors. What brought you there? Why? Not me. I figured that was where everything was off as soon as they taped it off and I walked over. Like I said, at first glance it didn't seem like anyone was particularly anxious or disturbed. I mean, I believed that life had already began and that everything had already happened. Indeed, I thought there had been a dog raid of some kind. Hence, when the constable informed me, I simply walked over without giving it any thought. Do you still harbor feelings for her? I didn't want a divorce, and I didn't do anything to deserve one. I mean, I still care about her, I loved her, and I want to spend the rest of my life with her. Have you ever been struck by someone, specifically? I am sorry. Have you ever hit anyone? I didn't ever hit her. It's true that I've never become agitated in front of her, so it can be challenging. Why does she desire a divorce? I suppose that our marriage lacked passion and affection, to put it simply. It was more along the lines of, well, I mean, I loved her, I looked after her, and everything, but I guess we simply weren't in love, you know? Then Davis asked what should happen to someone who murders their wife. Robert says it depends on the circumstance. At that moment, Davis was certain that Robert was accountable for Farah's death. But since there wasn't enough evidence to convict Robert, they had to let him go. After obtaining Robert's permission to inspect it, detectives discovered an address book and a $1,000 envelope inside of his vehicle. Robert made it clear that the money will be spent on new carpeting, telling officials that Stash paid him $1,000 to kill Robert's wife. His children and I attended church after every young woman I killed. Where did you get the weapon from? I'm Joe. Joe gave me the pistol around 30 minutes before we got back to the flat. I received the firearm from Joe. Why don't you, Howard, tell us what happened in your own words? I was brought here and then transported somewhere. Yes, let's take a stroll. We are in the backyard of the Prada house. I quickly walked inside after that and sat outside for about 20 minutes. I then called him from the payphone to the phone that was being sold. I also let him know that she still hadn't come back. When he told me to just wait it out, I hung up the phone with him. And I thought that was a problem. A car pulled into the garage a little over 10 minutes later. As soon as the car pulled up, I left the small dwelling. I then immediately arrived here. I had a .38 in my hand as I stood there. I then awaited someone to knock on the door. But nobody showed up. But sounds could be heard. As a result, I relocated covertly. I checked the door and it was shut from the outside. I did nothing but wait. The door finally opened and I went inside. I walked in and turned to face the woman. I made the motions depicted as I turned to the side while we were facing one another. At the time, I had a rifle in my hands. She kind of flopped to one side after I raised the rifle and fired one round into her head. The next time I shot him, I hit him in the head. I looked back as I walked out of this door to make sure no one was watching. Nobody was present. I got there and left. I'm exhausted. Will you please face the camera? I contacted Joe to let him know the meeting was over and I was ready to go. And it took him no longer than 45 seconds to get there, maybe much less. After conversing with Guidry, who claimed to be clueless, the detectives picked up Price Dash. However, Lieutenant Billingsley claimed that Price Dash told him everything while he was being driven back to the parking lot where they had picked him up, including how Robert had proposed to reward him with a Jeep. On March 13, 1995, Price Dash was taken into custody by the authorities for his involvement in the murder of Farah. After gathering all the evidence against him, authorities were finally able to make an arrest for soliciting murder on April 21, 1995. In April 1996, during Robert's first trial, a jury decided that he had killed Farah in cold blood. He thus received the fatal injection method of execution. I'm glad that justice and freedom won out. Both Farah's family and the victim's kin wept as the verdict was announced. The defendant was only concentrating on the table in front of him. Frada was charged with hiring a hitman to kill his wife after an extensive investigation. Frada's lawyers objected when the shooter's confession was read aloud in court. Do you think the decision was made unfairly? There's absolutely no question in my mind about it. While Frada's family remained silent, the victim's parents, who are in care of their grandchildren, spoke out frequently. The young toddler keeps requesting her mommy. Mama, you are loved by me. We miss you, Mother. You are undoubtedly in heaven. And I'll see you in heaven when I die. It is undoubtedly a lot of agony. That is a significant amount of suffering. In the closing arguments, Frada was characterized as a sexual offender. Lex Backer also described him as a danger to women. Betty Backer stated that she wanted Frada executed. Just wait until I next spot him on that table, poised to take his shot. That will be justice in my eyes. I can confirm that he left. Due to wrongly accepted evidence that was utilized in the initial trial, Robert's case was overturned 13 years later. Robert was found guilty and sentenced to death after a second trial in 2009. His sentence was carried out on January 10, 2023. The jury returns a verdict of guilty on the capital murder charge laid out in the foreman's signed indictment against the defendant, Robin Allen Frada. How could someone devise such a murderous scheme? After committing the murder, the killer turned around and winked at the camera as if nothing had happened. How could the person be so audacious as to ask if anyone would be willing to assist in committing the crime? Simply put, Robert Fraudo was a narcissist. He definitely thought that he was pretty much the center of the universe and that it would be unbearable for a woman to leave him. I guess Bob felt he didn't need to be concerned since he thought he knew enough about police work and criminal investigations. Robert exercised diligently in the gym. He looked at himself in the mirror all the time. Every time he passed a mirror, he felt compelled to look in it. He wore his suit and accoutrements when he entered the courtroom and exited, continuing to exude an image of excellent grooming and confidence. Favorable about Bob Fraudo was discovered by that test. After all, it called Fraudo psychopathic and narcissistic, with an antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic characteristics. A forensic psychologist with more than 20 years of experience, Dr. Jeff Kolochewski, offers a detailed examination of narcissist mentality. The symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder include a lifelong history of exaggerated self-importance, an excessive need for admiration, severe self-centeredness, a decreased ability for empathy, and propensities for interpersonally exploitative behavior. In some of their earliest writings, psychologists classified narcissistic personality disorders as a psychotic condition in which a person's opinions about situations are not always based on reality or the facts of a particular situation. People frequently function in a distorted reality. Their perceptions of their situations are typically bent towards arrogance or self-aggrandizement. For the 2009 retrial, board-certified forensic psychiatrist Dr. Ron Bailey reviewed Robert's 25-year-old medical files. According to Dr. Bailey's studies, Robert exhibited mild brain damage, paranoia, and delusional beliefs. He described Robert as egotistical as well. The 2018 interview with Werner Herzog revealed further details regarding Robert Fraudo's delusional mindset. Fraudo seems to feel as though God is pointing a finger at him as he loses himself in religious revelations and visions. Jesus himself spoke to me and instructed me to contact the Mormon Church and provided me with information about them. That also happened to coincide with other ideas that I genuinely believe came from God, which inspired me to write about establishing a new political system and country. Following that, I contacted the Mormon Church as told by the dream, and they provided me a copy of their Book of Mormon, which I studied and found to be entirely consistent with the material I had previously been given. And that's not going to happen, especially given how little knowledge you have about this. As a result, in my visions, we would simply be given our own land within the United States to start our own government, which we would refer to as the King of Zion, just like the Christians were. And it is there that we choose a king or queen who will uphold Christian principles and the Bible as their rule book. It would be a Christian nation. And we don't have that right now. We no longer trust God because of this country. Fraudo may have had narcissistic personality disorder or at least very strong narcissistic personality features, according to a number of pieces of evidence. He was often glib and shallow. He routinely put on acts for the cameras and spoke highly of himself. He also didn't seem to care about the likely consequences for his children or his divorced wife. Police in 1994 were quick to observe Robert's haughty behavior, according to Lieutenant Billingsley. Robert thought he was smarter than all of us and that no one could match him. Robert attempted to lighten the mood when being questioned by the investigator just hours after Farah's death. Have you ever been imprisoned anywhere, including in New York or here? No. You found love, but I haven't. I apologize, but I don't find love the way you do. I apologize, but I don't find love the way you do. I apologize, but I don't find love the way you do. I apologize, but I don't find love the way you do. I am sorry. I have to operate that grid similarly to how you did. Unfortunately, Detective Davis, who was in charge of the interrogation, didn't appear to be attempting to exploit this information. The police interview was a complete disaster. The detective didn't seem very keen to get the subject to provide details. However, considering Fraudo's blatant narcissism, getting him to speak would have been straightforward. In addition, the more he talks, the more likely it is that information he would have preferred to keep quiet will come out. Farah was divorcing Robert, filing for custody of their children, and exposing his secret sexual tendencies. Robert, A narcissist with delusional ideas somehow convinced himself that he was entitled to get rid of Farah. Even if they are narcissistic and deluded, how is it possible for someone to think they have the right to take someone's life and that they are not responsible for that person's death? How is it possible for someone with significant narcissism to murder someone else or devise their own murder plan? Someone might fabricate the facts to support their claim that a person is not required to exist in order to satisfy their needs or wants, however, if their desire to meet those needs is strong enough. A violent narcissist would probably hire a killer rather than do the crime themselves, which makes sense. They can clear their reputations by having someone else do the murder if the killer has any regrets about the murder. As a result, people shouldn't feel bad about their own twisted ideas or perspectives. The victim wasn't actually killed by them. If you felt this case was compelling, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your opinion in the comments section. Moreover, click the notify button to be notified whenever we reveal a brand new breathtaking example. Be cautious and keep an eye out till then. In the shadows, anything could be lurking.